All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Investing Club, and happy Friday, everybody. Bringing that Friday energy to you. It is a nice and cloudy day here in Seattle, and we like that even though it is the beginning of August. Sometimes it gets too hot, and we just want a little bit of cloud cover to keep us nice and cool. So I hope you guys are staying cool out there and having a good day. It's a good day for another reason, because we have Stewart Heath with us here on the podcast. He is from Harvard Grace Capital, and they focus on self-storage and office. So it'll be a good episode. Stewart, thanks for hopping on the show.
Thanks, Gabe. Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. I told you right before we got on here, we always like starting with stories and hearing how people got to where they are. So take us to the beginning of your story in real estate and tell us, how'd you get here?
Well, I am a CPA, and I became a CPA because my dad was a CPA. Seemed like a good thing. And then I get a few years into that and like, I'm a lot more entrepreneurial than most other CPAs. And started out with one of the big national firms, and I go all the way back because this was formative for me. So I come out of college in 1985. Right after that, we had the 1986 Tax Act, which basically retroactively changed some tax laws as it related to real estate limited partnerships, and destroyed the resale value of mainly apartments, but other things, by taking away tax advantages. So you had all these properties that had been bought up by investment partnerships, with a 4-to-1 write-off type of a scenario, which was the law at the time. And then you take all that away, and then and then the property is only worth what, watch out, what the cash, the capitalization of the cash flow is, which is what us purists are really all about now. But if you didn't have tax benefits to add to that, the property's not worth as much. And so for about 5 years after the 1986 Tax Act, you just had some real disruption in real estate. And I'm very young, and I'm listening to people around me, like bankers, and bankers are saying things like, "Oh, we don't lend on real estate anymore." And like, oh, okay, so I'm kind of writing that down. Real estate equals bad.
Yeah.
And I guess they preferred collateral that had wheels, and could go away or something like that. But that shakes out. We have a real estate based economy, and so after a few years, I left the big firm and started my own firm. And most of my clients came from one way or another, were attached to the real estate industry, and ended up with some really high producer brokers or developers, and they were doing fix and flips and stuff like that. And I'm just doing my bean counter thing, and I'm like, my God, look how much money they made, and look how little tax they paid, and so maybe real estate's not so bad. Fast forward to the year 2000, and I'm making good money in my practice, and it's middle of the night, middle of tax season, and just sitting there. Something's not right. I'm making lots of money. I'm not building any wealth, and I just started to consider real estate. And not too long after that, I bought my first duplex and realized, oh wow, I really like this. And I mean, it just from a mindset of, I'm a CPA and I'm billing everybody by the hour. If I don't work, I'm not getting paid. And I'm not going to say real estate's passive, but you don't have to be working every second of the day to be earning that rent income and stuff like that. So from there, I ended up buying a lot of residential units, parlayed those, and I actually started building houses and did some development work. I didn't make it out of the great financial crisis in whole, but I was able to step back. And now when I was able to pivot, I pivoted away from residential, the way you and I were just talking, and so I've pivoted to commercial, and we structure things, I think, correctly with lots of reserves and cash flowing properties, and we're not doing 100% financings. We typically limit our financings to 70% LTV and stuff like that. So we are that's where I am, and I absolutely love it. Yeah.
Nice, man. I love it. Yeah, we were talking before the show that we each kind of, you said you had, I think it was up to 200, single family
I
duplex
think it
kind
was
of.
222 residential units that we had in our personal portfolio.
Yeah.
And
And that kind
at
of
one point, I actually
turned
bought
you
a
away.
property management company. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Residential can be a nightmare. It is, it's definitely a good asset. There are people out there doing it well, but I love self-storage. And
Mm.
you're also in office. Office
I
is
am.
something that is kind of getting a bad rap these days. Why did you choose to get into office?
Well, we closed our first office deal in January of 22. Of
And
course, this is already,
before you go in, can you
yeah,
specify what type of office? Because there's,
I
the
will.
office is kind of a general. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it is. That's sort of uh, one of my main points is that office is dead. It's kind of an overgeneralization. There's at least six subcategories of office. A major one is like medical office.
Mm,
So we have a medical office building, and your doctor's not going anywhere.
right.
They're not coming to see you.
Right.
And they have hundreds and thousands of dollars invested in their own build outs, and they have to have places to put those very expensive machines that they run you through. I mean, medical office is as stable as it's ever been. Um, yeah, I like also what I call suburban office. Some people might call it service retail, and that was actually our first purchase. It was a building I had managed for a client for several years, but it's got what I call consumer facing tenants in it.
Mm.
So it's got
Like hair
dentists.
supply. Oh, okay. Dentist.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, it's got like dentists, insurance agents, mortgage companies, any place where the customer goes there. It's technically an office. Um,
Starbucks. Well, I guess Starbucks would be
I,
retail,
I
but
wish I wish I
yeah.
had a Starbucks in one of mine, but there's service related businesses where customers go and interface with that business. So a little bit on the retail side, but it's an office building, and these are things that are outside city centers, and they're and again, I have to focus, emphasize that consumer facing thing. It's the Class A offices or the downtown center offices
Mid-rise,
where the employees
high-rise.
don't want to go back anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if that company is not seeing their customers in that office, that's sort of that's the differentiation to me.
That
Yeah.
actually makes sense. If the customers aren't going to the office, then that is the sector that's having issues. Those are the ones that
Yes.
Amazon goes to, and their employees go in 1 day a week. So Amazon's like, we don't want to do this anymore. That makes a lot
Right.
of sense. I've never heard it categorized that way. Um, yeah, I don't know a ton about office. You said there's six different subcategories of office. I think I've counted four that you've mentioned so far. You said, uh, you know, um, basically your high rise, mid rise office that people go to downtown. You mentioned
Yeah.
retail office, essentially, medical
Yeah.
office. What are the other categories?
They would be more specialties, and it could be highly local. So I'm close to the Huntsville, Alabama market, and I would say that there's this thing called the Defense Contracting Office,
Ah, very
and,
specific to Huntsville. Yeah.
very, very specific. And what does that mean? Well, during COVID, they didn't get to stay home because a lot of your defense contracting needs, or require those employees to work inside of a skiff. I never can remember what that stands for, but it's some sort of top secret electronic signals blocked area. They go in
Ah,
there, and you can't do that remotely.
right.
you know I guess you could, but nobody would put that in their house. But so those employees have to go in there and work, and that didn't disrupt them at all. And that might be a Class A office building, might be a very nice building, but it might also just be um, that's the use of that building. And we got all kinds down in the Huntsville. So you've got Class B and Class A offices that are being rented by defense contractors. So I say six subclasses. I can come up with another one in a minute, but probably. But I think there's actually more than that. It's just throwing all of office into one
Yeah,
bucket, as the financial media loves to do, is just it's
it's not
silly.
accurate.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, medical office is such a massive class all of itself. It should probably be a class by itself.
Yeah, a partner of mine, he really likes medical office, but I feel office, especially, is one of those asset classes like industrial, where it's really hard to find a good deal. So, how do you go about looking
Mhm.
out there and finding deals that pencil well? And are you doing
Uh,
value add, or are you just buying for stabilization?
Typically not. But we do what I call uh, management value add, because my
Okay. Yep.
favorite deal to do is to find a decent building that's been completely mismanaged.
Yep.
And and it might take some time, because if you got a bad lease, you have to live out the rest of that lease. Hopefully it's not any more than 3 years, and then you go in there and you lease it properly, and what that means is you write a lease that uh, as much of the costs as you can get to flow through the tenant. You do that. That'd be either modified gross or some sort of a triple net, which is very popular in the office space now. Um, and you have annual escalators. So many times you'll find, a lot of times they're doctors. They bought their own building. They thought, and a lot of times they took immaculate care of the physical asset, but they didn't know squat about the financial instrument that is the long-term lease, and how to keep the value. And no matter how good you took care of your building's only worth, sort of, the net operating income generated by those leases. So they've had people in there for 10 years and never raised the rent.
Mm.
And so it will usually take them a while, but we can usually bring them around and say, all right, that's what the building's worth now. And I said, I can pay you this now, or I can coach you along on how to do these leases, and I'll buy the building from you in 5 years. Because ultimately, if they're ready to sell, they're ready to sell. And we've done this a couple of times, where it takes 8, 9 months just to get them to the point where they're willing to sell to us.
Yeah.
And that's what I
Yeah.
call management value add.
I feel like that happens with every asset that you're looking at. The seller, you just got to keep following up with them. I've followed up with
Yeah.
somebody for 2 years before they finally were like, all right, now's the time, let's sell. So
Only way I'm
it's
going to get this guy to go away is to sell to him.
so it sounds like for office, it really does come down to the leases. That is
Oh yeah.
like one of the most important things is how the lease is structured. When
Yes.
you're underwriting these deals, what are you looking for in the lease that kind of signals to you that it's a deal?
Um, Whether or not the tenant is a national tenant or a franchise tenant or not, if they are more local, is there a personal guarantee behind the lease? Whether or not there are what we consider to be proper escalators in the lease, annual increases, um, and really those type of things. Really, and the business. I mean, there are. We looked at a retail building, sort of a strip center the other day. We do some retail as well. Um, and we passed because almost half the space was occupied by a brand new brewery.
Ah,
And it's like, okay,
are they going to be here in a couple of years? We don't know.
are they going to be here in 6 months?
Right.
And so we delved into it and said, who are the guys behind this? And I love our military guys, but this was three partners who were retired military, and they thought, hey, let's do a brewery.
Hmm.
Yeah, not exactly a track record of operating success, and running a restaurant, much less a brewery, is one of the toughest businesses around. So so we passed on that opportunity, just because that's almost guaranteed disruption. 80% of small businesses usually fail within 5 years anyway.
Yeah.
60% within the first year. So we're
So, and I'm
yeah.
assuming
Go
they
ahead.
had a pretty
Yeah.
long what do they call it in the office space? Is it season or whatever. They had a long term on their lease still.
Oh, they had 10 years. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if
Yeah.
that had been like two or something,
Maybe.
in the near future,
Maybe.
you would have still
Yeah.
considered it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course, if they fail, you're going to be releasing it anyway.
Right.
Uh, but so, yeah, our general rule is whatever business your tenants are in, you're in that business too. And so, what do we think of that business?
Yeah.
We love insurance agents and mortgage people and doctors and dentists and all these very, very, very stable operations and chiropractors and stuff. We love that kind of stuff.
Things that aren't going
Um,
away anytime soon.
yeah, not breweries. So, for instance, I told the guy, I said, "Hey, if you could replace them with a Mexican restaurant, we're in." So,
That's true though.
I
Mexican
mean,
restaurants, they're just the most stable like food group. My fiance and I were just having this conversation. Like, they're all the different types of food. I feel like Mexican food is the food that just it's really hard to go wrong. And it's
that's
always a
right.
decent meal is Mexican food.
When was the last one you saw go out of business? I mean,
Yeah.
all I ever see is that they're expanding.
Yeah, it's funny.
I call them the government bond of tenants. So,
Right on. Well, we are running down the clock. I did want to talk a little bit about self storage since I'm in that and I
sure.
love self
Yeah,
storage.
absolutely.
Well, first, when did you get into it, and why did you choose self storage?
Um, we are asset class agnostic. We kind
Mm,
of focus on our geography, but self storage. I mean, it's a huge cash cow. We got into it in December of 22, and our first unit was a specialty. Um, it's all large units. It's not
mm.
small units,
Like
and
10 by
it's
30s and
they're all 10 by 50s, and,
10
and
by
it's all for
50s.
RVs. It's
Geez,
all for
yeah, okay. I was
RVs,
gonna say
boats.
that's RV
Yeah,
storage.
yes, it is. But people found us. We half of our units are rented by businesses.
Mm. Like
Legitimate
contractor
businesses.
garages. Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of a thing. Some of them even national chains that are just need a regional storage place, and they didn't need 6,000 feet.
Mm.
So yeah, it was full when we bought it. It's still full now, and we're about to do an 80 unit expansion there,
Nice.
and I just love it. I mean, it's a bit of a retail business, from the management side.
Yeah.
But the thing is, when you have a problem with somebody, you can get them out pretty easily,
Yep.
which is very different than most anything else, frankly.
Yeah. And I don't really have a problem with self-storage evictions. Whenever it's even with mobile home RV parks, like, they are living there, it is their life, and it's just difficult on the kind of the heartstrings to do an eviction there.
Yes,
But with self-storage, it's your
yes,
stuff. I really don't care. It's like you didn't pay
right.
me. You just take your stuff.
Yeah, please leave.
Yeah.
And you got the whole TV show Storage Wars, and I've never yet had to do the auction thing.
You haven't had
You
to do
know,
an auction. Wow, interesting.
knock on wood. No, no, I mean, every people move into those things, and they got expensive equipment, and all. They just leave, and usually they don't do anything on the way out. They just leave,
We
and
at one of our facilities, we have an issue where people are they will rent a unit just to dump. So like they do just have a shit ton of garbage that they can't get rid of. They don't want to take it to the dump, so they rent a unit because it's cheaper than dumping it. Put it in the unit, and then we have to deal with it. It's storage is it's a interesting experience. Are
oh,
your
that is
facilities
fascinating. Yeah.
yeah, are your facilities remotely managed, or do you have on-site help?
We do not have on-site help at any of ours, and but we're answering the phone 7 days a week. We've got surveillance cameras. Everything is the entire rental process is online. Um, so we haven't done yet what I call a traditional facility. We tried to buy one earlier this year, but their occupancy started backing up going into
Hmm.
the contract, so we got out. Um, our other facility is one that we built out in the basement of an office building that
Okay.
we bought that had never been
Used.
that space had never been built out before. So we just started leasing that a month or so ago, and it's unmanned. It's only 30 units, but
It's I mean, you're turning space into revenue generating, for
yeah,
the building, so that's good.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We like it because it's not near any other storage facilities, and we're playing a niche for medical. office records were right sort of in the hospital district, and they've got storage needs for records that are crazy. You got to keep stuff 10 years after the last time they saw the patient.
Oh,
So
wow.
where do you put that stuff?
Yeah, that's crazy. All right. Well, we have run through the time, so it's time to jump into the quick question round. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. It starts with education. I need two recommendations. It could be any form of education, could be books, movies, whatever. Just give me two recommendations, one for general life wisdom and then one for real estate.
Real estate, there are several masterminds. If you want me to be specific, I can.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm a big fan of Hunter Thompson's Raise Masters. I've been a
Mm,
member of theirs, and it's not just networking and monthly meetings. The resources that he provides are really top notch. I'm an avid reader. I read the Wall Street Journal every day. I like books. My favorite book of the last few years is Who Not How, as I'm
yeah.
growing my book. And just like I'm just an entrepreneur, and we are not natural delegators. But
It's
that
true.
book convinced me that I don't need to figure out how to solve the problem. I need to figure out who's going to solve the problem, and so that was sort of a game changer for me. So.
Nice. Yeah, multiple people have recommended that book on the show. I haven't picked it up yet myself, but I
Yeah.
definitely need to read it. Um,
It's an easy read. So
yeah. And I've thought about subscribe to New York Times. That's the source of news that I have, but I've thought about switching to Wall Street Journal because I've heard it's more like business oriented, obviously Wall
oh yeah,
Street. And it's
yeah,
less like those crazy stories that happen internationally. I'm tired of the negative news and I just want to hear
right.
business stuff. All right.
Yeah, Wall Street Journal is great for that. I also watch CNBC, which does better than Fox Business, which is really just all politics. And but CNBC is easier for me to take than watching Bloomberg all day.
Yeah.
It's like it's like public radio all day long.
All right, next question is for your younger self. So let's go back to the Stewart who was just graduating. I think you said back in 1986. Go back to him, look him in
Mhm.
the eye, give him one piece of advice moving forward.
Understand that learning goes on for in your entire life, and you know you've gone through high school, you get out of college, you think finally done with school. Oh, you haven't even begun. Just start a process of lifelong learning. Pick your sources, and you get to choose what you want to learn. Add skills. I wish I had buckled down and learned Spanish. If you can speak English and Spanish, you can talk to about 80% of the people on the planet. And that's got nothing to do with business. But business is really all about people. And that would have made several situations, easier for me to deal with. So just keep learning.
There you go. Good advice. All right, next question is about the US. It is a big place. There's a lot of opportunity out there. Give me the single metro you're most excited about investing in today.
Huntsville, Alabama.
Huntsville. All right. Multiple people have said Huntsville. It's interesting. Alabama doesn't often come top of mind for people when they're thinking about
Yeah,
investing metros, but
yeah,
Huntsville's evidently crushing it out there. So, uh,
yeah.
yeah, it's good to
I
hear.
don't go much into LA, which we call Lower Alabama, uh, but although we're doing a deal in Birmingham right now, another medical office building, but we're stretching our geography with that. But the economics were just tremendous. But Northern Alabama is actually one of the highest educated areas in the entire country,
Oh well,
and and they literally are rocket scientists.
yeah, NASA's up there, right? No, wait,
Yeah,
that's yeah, okay,
yeah. NASA's there, and a whole bunch of defense contractors, and and you've got Blue Origin, Jeff Bezos's company, Rocket Engine company is there, and Facebook, and all these other people, and it's just a really pleasant place to live with generally pleasant people and high education, and that just makes a good, nice place to be. So.
all right, Huntsville. All right, next question is about finding deals. It all starts with getting in contact with the seller and writing up that purchase agreement. So, what is your favorite way to generate leads and find new deals?
Oh, favorite way. I guess my favorite way is when one of my broker connections brings me an off-market deal, and we start to have a conversation. It takes a while to generate those broker relationships, and we have several that will bring us deals. But I do not neglect my regular time spent in CoStar and Crexy looking through deals and yeah, have other people in our group that do that as well. Sometimes they see one that I missed, or I find some the brokers missed. But favorite way, definitely the off-market deal.
There you go. Talking to brokers. All
Yeah.
right. Next question is about lessons learned. Not every deal that we get into goes the way that we expect it. In fact, most deals, something usually goes wrong, but that's where we get to learn our greatest lessons. So, what was a deal that went a little sideways for you? And then what was the lesson you pulled from it?
Well, I boil it all down to you don't know what you don't know. And back when I said I didn't really get through the great financial crisis in whole, I was doing everything with maximum debt, little cash, you know, buying this, refinancing this after here, and so forth and so on, and built a pretty good sized portfolio. But I had no reserves. You
Mm,
don't know what's going to happen. You must maintain reserves. We build reserves into every one of our deals now, and generally 12 months. And so, had I had reserves of as little as $500,000, I could have saved a $20 million portfolio. Um, because generally things don't go dead for a year. They're going to go upside down for 3 to 6 months. If you have 12 months worth of reserve to carry you through, you're going to be able to get on the right side of that.
mm.
And the banks are going to work with you and restructure and stuff like that. But if you got nothing to bring to the table, banks will just wipe you out. And that's it's pretty much what happened. I didn't have any ability to say, "Hey, can you help me?" And they're like, "I guess we don't need you anymore." So, just have some cash on the sidelines. Just be ready for the unexpected.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that is a super important lesson, both for just general operating and also when you're getting into deals, have more capex than you think. Just cash. I've gotten into multiple deals where it underwrote super well, but I didn't think to bring in enough capital for improvements. Like I underwrote it, but everything takes more money than you think. And so have
Everything
that
takes
money
more
on the
money than you
sidelines.
think.
And by reserves, you mean both operating reserves and mortgage reserves. So you're able to
Yes.
cover the mortgage
Yeah.
payments and your operating expenses for up to 12 months,
Yes.
and you want that in the bank
Yes.
account.
Yes.
Nice, I like it. All right. Next question is about making or about money, raising money. It takes money to make money in real estate. That is unquestioned. So, what is your favorite way to raise capital for your deals?
Uh, Frankly, networking with other people at conferences and things like that. Not necessarily real estate conferences, but any type of a business conference. We're doing all the online stuff. We do emails, we do outreaches on LinkedIn, we do daily posting and all. But by far, the single best and most enjoyable way for me is meeting people at conferences and developing relationships. Uh, it sounds awfully slow, and it is, but you know, give it some time and allow it to snowball. And when we did our first deal, I had 6 investors. We're closing a deal in 3 weeks on a medical office building. We got 60. Different separate investors, and a lot of those are new. So our total investor list is stretched to about 90 of people who have done deals with us, and that's in 2.5, 3 years time.
Wow.
And it's an awful lot of work. I don't particularly like generating content, and frankly, I've picked up some stuff by being on um, podcasts like with
Mm-hmm.
you. So
Yep.
because people reach out and we start a relationship. Yeah, and they don't just. It's not just, hey, I'm going to invest with you. Some of these folks you have a relationship with for more than a year,
Mm-hmm.
just like you and the seller. I mean, you were persistent, and it took him 2 years to finally be ready to sell. So
Yep.
it's all a relationship.
I love it. All right, that brings us to the very last question. This is for the listeners. You've given us a lot to think about. I'm sure people want to reach out, get in contact with you. This is a two-parter. Where can they find you? And then what can they expect when they reach out?
So they can find me at harvardgrace.com. Um, there you can find my Calendly link and my other contact details. And I do invite everyone to reach out, like to talk about real estate all the time. Also, if you'll go to the resources on our page, if you are a passive investor, or we've got several resources, why entrepreneurs should be investing passively in real estate. We've got another one that's questions you should be asking your passive investment sponsor. And we got other things like definitions and terms and some educational stuff. And so there's a lot there if you're new to the space and want to learn some stuff. It's only going to cost you your email address, and frankly, you could immediately block me right after you got the resources. But we hope you don't, because we think we put out some good stuff. So anyway, I do invite everybody to reach out and chat if you have a mind to.
All right, perfect. I will put that link in the show notes. So if you guys want to reach out, just click the little more in the description. It'll pull down that full description. In there, you can find Stewart's links. All right, Stewart, that was great. Thanks for hopping on the show.
Thank you, Gabe. You bet. Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. For everybody who's here with us today, thank you guys for showing up. You are the reason we do this. So if you guys have any questions whatsoever, reach out to me, Gabe at therealestateinvestingclub.com. If you guys want to support the show, just leave us a review on whatever you're listening to this on. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great week. Keep rocking real estate, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.